If you're an anime fan, you probably know what filler is. But for those of you who don't, it's what happens when an anime catches up to the manga it's adapting and has to fill up time in order for the original author to build up more story to adapt, resulting in anime original episodes. In Dragon Ball, these episodes aren't considered canon, and as a result, they're often dismissed. But we're here to tell you which filler episodes are actually worth watching. We just had to start this video off with Goku's Ordeal, the infamous episode in which Goku and Piccolo attempt to take driving lessons. The episode has long been quoted as many fans' favorite, filler or otherwise, and even some of the English dub voice actors have stated it's their favorite as well. And we can't blame them. This episode is absolutely fantastic. For one thing, the idea of two superhuman warriors with the ability to fly needing to get their driver's licenses makes for great television, combining superheroics with sitcoms for a fantastic episode. Another thing that makes this episode so great is that it's one of those rare slice-of-life Dragon Ball episodes that we think there needs to be more of, since watching planet-protecting warriors on their days off is always fun. Heck, Marvel made an entire Hawkeye series about the character's downtime, and seeing the Z-Fighters in similar situations is just as entertaining. Next up is another fan favorite, this time from Dragon Ball Super. Of course, we're talking about a challenge from Champa, this time a baseball game. This episode is easily one of the best slice-of-life episodes from Super, depicting Universes 6 and 7 participating in a friendly game of baseball, rather than a fighting tournament. During this game, Yamcha acts as the resident baseball expert, playing for Universe 7's team to give them the upper hand, since he played professionally as his main source of income. But, he might not have made it into the major league since his apartment looks severely low rent and run down. Regardless, this episode had a lot of great bits of humor, the funniest parts being the fact that Vegeta played on Universe 6's team just to play against Goku, and the scene in which Yamcha gets cratered in the same way he died back in the Saiyan saga. Oof. Turning back the clock a bit, we have the final episode of Dragon Ball, a filler bookend for the series that didn't originally appear in the manga. The episode we're talking about is The End, The Beginning, which depicted Goku and Chi-Chi's wedding day, as well as some of the events leading up to it. This episode continued and concluded the mini-saga that took place after the Piccolo Jr. saga, in which Goku and Chi-Chi attempt to put out the fire at the Ox King's castle in order to get Chi-Chi's mother's wedding dress for her to wear. This part of the story is somewhat forgettable, and you need to watch the whole thing to fully understand what's going on. But it's all worth it to see the very sweet, very funny, and overall wholesome depiction of Goku and Chi-Chi's day of holy matrimony. Oh man, we're getting teary-eyed. Why do weddings always make us cry? Like any other filler saga, the Otherworld Tournament saga has its ups and downs, but its finale, Goku vs. PyCon, was actually pretty awesome. The episode, as one might expect, depicted the battle between Goku and PyCon, and while the character is something of a carbon copy of Piccolo, the battle between them wasn't any less awesome because of it, especially because Goku used the Super Kaioken, a combination of his Super Saiyan and Kaioken transformations, for the first and only time during the fight. Suffice it to say, the final episode of the Otherworld Tournament saga was a good way to end the filler story arc, and even if it didn't need to happen and didn't add much to the overall story, there's no denying how cool that fight was. In fact, the animation was also pretty impressive throughout, standing as some of the best filler animation throughout the entire Dragon Ball franchise. While there's technically no filler episodes in Dragon Ball Super in the traditional definition of the word, since it's not adapted from a manga, there are still plenty of between-saga episodes that are meant to give the story some breathing room before the next saga starts. One of these episodes that is definitely worth checking out is Goku vs. Arale. An off-the-wall battle spells the end of the Earth? The reason we don't suggest skipping over this episode is that it provides a really fun clash of themes between these serious action genre aspects of Dragon Ball and the gag manga elements of Dr. Slump, since this episode is a crossover between the two Akira Toriyama creations. During the episode, Goku and Vegeta both face off against Arale, whose strength is far beyond theirs because she has the power of comedy on her side, allowing her to defeat anyone for the sake of a joke. We're not gonna lie to you and say that the Dragon Ball episode The Time Room is the best filler episode in the franchise, but it does have a lot of fun things going on that make it worth checking out. The episode follows Goku as he's thrust back in time, meeting Master Roshi when he was just a young man. He and Roshi train under Master Mutaito so that Goku can get strong enough to beat Mr. Popo. The episode is full of weird contradictions to the lore of Dragon Ball, and is overall underwhelming, but the fun of seeing Goku interact with a younger version of his first martial arts teacher makes up for a lot of the episode's shortcomings. In fact, it's the characters that make this episode so fun, since we get to see Roshi and Shen's rivalry in its early stages as well as more of Master Mutaito than just brief flashbacks. Fun fact, did you know that Gregory didn't appear in the original Dragon Ball manga? He was actually an anime original creation that Toriyama himself helped develop, which is part of why he's considered canon. Why do we bring up Gregory? Well, while Goku was attempting to whack the cricket over the head with a mallet in the episode Goku's Ancestors, look, it's Dragon Ball, training is weird, King Kai took the time to tell the story of Goku's people, the Saiyan race. While some of the stuff in this history of the Saiyans is non-canon, it was still an interesting episode, since it gave us a little more information about the Saiyan race, which aside from the information Raditz had revealed, we didn't know much about. It wasn't the greatest episode, sure, but Goku's Ancestors deserves credit for being one of the few filler episodes that actually attempted to add to the lore of the franchise. We here at CBR are big fans of the Great Saiyaman saga of Dragon Ball Z, even the filler episodes, since we just love Gohan's goofy superhero persona. In fact, there are 2 filler episodes in particular from the saga that we think are worth watching, even if you plan on watching only canon episodes. One of those episodes is Gohan's first date, and the reason you should not skip it is because it's just plain old fun. Of course, the episode depicts Gohan's first date, not with Videl, but with Angela, a girl who Gohan thought knew his secret identity. Because of this, she blackmailed him into going on a date with her. But the whole thing ended up being a big misunderstanding, playing out like a superhero sitcom that was fantastic as an episode. The best part being that we learned Gohan wears teddy bear underwear. Or does he? After all, this episode isn't considered canon. The episode immediately after Gohan's first date is also worth watching, as it built up the relationship between Videl and Gohan, as well as the relationship between Videl and the Great Saiyaman. Titled Blackmail, this episode focused on Gohan attempting to rescue a baby pterodactyl named Chobi from being an act at an abusive circus. In order to do so, Gohan stole Chobi from the circus using his Great Saiyaman persona, the whole ordeal leaving Videl to figure out that Gohan was the Great Saiyaman. This information led her to blackmail Gohan into teaching her to fly, as well as forcing him to enter the World Martial Arts Tournament as a means of putting her father in his place. Although the ending of this episode was more or less canon, the filler parts are also worth watching, since they provide some fun, Great Saiyaman moments, as well as a great fight between Videl and Gohan's superhero persona. If you haven't noticed by now, we love slice-of-life episodes of Dragon Ball, and Super had some of the best in the franchise. Some of them being Goku's energy is out of control, the struggle to look after Pan. This episode followed Goku as he developed an energy-related sickness as a result of pushing himself too hard, leaving him with poor control over his abilities. This was shown when he was unable to fly properly and when he accidentally instant transmission to the wrong location a number of times, including in the middle of Bulma and Vegeta's bedroom after she had gotten out of the shower. Moments like this, as well as the later moments where Goku babysits Pan, are what made this episode so much fun, especially since we learned just how diligent of a babysitter Piccolo was. Seriously, the guy had a gigantic list of do's and don'ts in regard to Pan's caretaking. Next up, we have Memories of Gohan, a filler episode from the Cell Saga that depicted Gohan's birthday as well as memories of him as a child, obviously. As many know, Gohan was named after Goku's adoptive grandfather, but we never knew how this came about until this filler episode aired. In the flashback, we learned that Chi-Chi and her father, the Ox King, were all too eager to give Gohan ridiculous names, but the only one he responded to was Gohan. In fact, the same could be said of Goku, who only finally became interested in his son after getting to name him after his grandfather. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. This moment was a really fun flashback, and the rest of the episode was just as great, since we got to see Gohan celebrate his birthday as he and Goku hilariously tried and failed to avoid destroying everything in the house while in their Super Saiyan forms. If there's one thing to complain about in how Dragon Ball Super depicts Goku, it's that they made him just a bit too dumb. Sure, as a kid, Goku didn't have much going on upstairs, but he did eventually get a little smarter, so there was no need to make him so dim-witted in Super. One of the funnier examples of Goku being a little too dim came from the whole lie surrounding Manaka. Specifically, in their battle in the episode A Chaotic Victory part, Showdown at Last, Manaka vs. Goku. In this ridiculously long-titled episode, Goku wanted to challenge Manaka to a fight to see just how strong he really was. The only problem with this is that Manaka was nothing more than a motivator for Goku to get stronger. So Beerus had to put on a Manaka costume and fight Goku in order to keep up the illusion, resulting in a very fun episode. Like we said earlier, we love the Great Saiyaman saga, and we were delighted by how Dragon Ball Super brought the persona back. Of course, we're talking about the 2 filler episodes that depicted the production of a Great Saiyaman movie. The first episode, Gohan's Plight, the preposterous Great Saiyaman film adaptation, gave Gohan a return to his infamous superhero persona in a new, interesting, and overall lovably goofy way. While visiting the set of the Saiyaman film, Gohan managed to become the stuntman for actor Barry Kahn, performing real superhuman feats in his place. The whole scenario is fun and makes for a great setup for more intense things to come, specifically in the form of Barry's jealousy turning him into a monster. There was also the beginnings of an interesting subplot that developed into a display of just how strong Gohan's relationship with Videl is, a plot that developed further in the next episode. The second episode of Dragon Ball Super's miniature Great Saiyaman saga was just as good as the first, titled For My Beloved Ones, The Indomitable Great Saiyaman. This episode furthered the drama and action that was started by the previous episode, and both are definitely worth checking out during a watch-through of Dragon Ball Super. This episode in particular had some really strong character moments for both Gohan and Videl, and their relationship was strengthened by the whole ordeal. However, the greatest part of this episode had to be the awesome final battle between the Great Saiyaman and the monstrous alien-infected Barry Kahn. The reason this fight was so awesome was because we actually got to see the Great Saiyaman fight, rather than just save people and stop bank robbers. The fight itself was just plain badass, and also managed to poke some fun at superhero movies with its hilarious ending. We're not all that keen on the Garlic Jr. saga. For one thing, it was based on a movie that was already considered non-canon, building on it with more weird filler. But there's one episode that made for some great storytelling: Black Fog of Terror. The reason we recommend watching this filler episode is because its basic premise is pretty interesting, since it follows Gohan as he battles against his friends and family while they're all under the control of the Black Water Mist, a mind-controlling fog that turns everybody evil. The resulting plot was an awesome combination of a horror film and prime Dragon Ball storytelling, making for a really cool episode that we wish wasn't attached to the weirdness of the Garlic Jr. saga. Regardless, we still recommend watching this episode, both for its horror movie-like approach and because it has some of the best animation in the entire series. Here's a fun fact: did you know that the original English voice of Vegeta, Brian Drummond, made a return to the franchise in Dragon Ball Super? During a filler episode, Goku came across duplicate Vegeta, a weird goopy clone of the Prince of Saiyans that was voiced by Drummond in a returning cameo. Both because of this amazing casting choice and because the episode has a great mix of comedy and action, we highly recommend watching Goku vs. Duplicate Vegeta. Which one is going to win? We also recommend watching the previous episode to know what's going on, but this episode in particular has such a great battle that it's definitely the superior of the two. Not only is the episode's action top-notch, it also has an amazing series of gags surrounding Vegeta sucking on a pacifier in order to stay alive, an act he later became embarrassed about after learning what a pacifier was. While it did make it into the Kai cut of the series, the party episode of Dragon Ball Z is technically filler. The episode in question, He's Always Late, is actually pretty great, since it gave us more of those sweet Dragon Ball slice-of-life moments. Alright, maybe it's just us who likes the slice-of-life stuff, but this episode is still great, since it showed us just what kind of person Goku is, giving us the best of his personality and depicting him watching over an unhatched egg to ensure it wouldn't get damaged. Sure, he ditched Bulma's party in order to watch over the egg, but it was still a great example of how kind-hearted the big, powerful oaf is. Both because of this and because of the great moments at the party that Goku is missing out on, we highly recommend watching the episode, especially if you want some prime Chi-Chi comedy moments. Oh, Chi-Chi. Krillin is easily Goku's best friend, their bond forming when they first trained together under Master Roshi. Because of this relationship, we recommend you watch 2 filler episodes from Dragon Ball Super, since they both depicted how strong their friendship was, and they significantly developed Krillin's character. The first episode, Goku and Krillin, Back to the Old Familiar Training Ground, depicted Krillin attempting to get back into fighting shape. going to Master Roshi for help. During their training, Krillin and Goku were tasked with finding the Paradise Herb in the Forest of Terror, an exercise that brought Krillin face to face with all the villains who ended him in the past. One of the best parts of this episode is that the entire training exercise was a callback to Goku and Krillin's first day of training under Master Roshi, since they were tasked with finding a rock in a deep forest by the old turtle hermit. Continuing from the previous episode, conquer the terrifying foes. Krillin's fighting spirit rebounds further developed Krillin's character by showing he had become haunted by his past deaths, depicting him conquering said deaths by defeating the illusions of the villains that ended him. It was powerful imagery to say the least, and it resulted in a stellar episode that had both great fights and great emotional depth. Seriously, it was about time the series addressed the trauma that Krillin would realistically have from dying so many times. Plus, Goku got to reunite with the Flying Nimbus after about 20 years, a reunion that was just plain fun and adorable. Goku even sang Cha-La Head Cha-La, the Japanese theme of Dragon Ball Z. Suffice it to say, this episode was just as good as the last, and neither of them should be skipped over, both because they aren't technically filler and because they have some fantastic character moments throughout. Last and certainly not least, we have the weird but awesome Dragon Ball Super episode, Goku Dies, an assassination that must be executed. This episode's ending and the following episode that concluded the mini-story arc are kind of dumb, since the story revolved around Goku hiring Hit to assassinate him as a means of making himself stronger. But the stuff before that is really cool. Of course, we're talking about the scenes where we got to see Hit doing what he does best, assassinating targets. Although the sequence was brief, we got to see Hit use his powers outside of the ring and on the job, skipping through time to make his way through a building in order to get to his target. The whole thing having a strong Blade Runner vibe. Seriously, the aesthetic of this episode's intro alone had us pining for a spin-off series following Hit on his various assassination jobs. So, there you have it, our picks for the Dragon Ball filler episodes that are actually worth watching. Did we leave any of your favorites out? Did you think any of these were a total snore? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to CBR for more Dragon Ball videos. Thanks for watching.